Students, we are very fortunate that I am able to have a live interview with Dr. Mashelkar. In your course material, we have listed his outstanding contribution of science and technology, not in India, but all over the world. There are few people who get the, I should say, accomplishment of such a nature to get many awards. But more important, I feel recently, he has introduced the concept of Gandhian engineering. So what is that all means? And he is doing some pioneer work and also innovations in India. As you will see from his bio, he is almost, I would say, Chief Innovation Officer, Knowledge Officer, Chief Scientist of India. Now, even in his retirement, he has taken up many activities, and I would like to introduce you Dr. Mashelkar, and maybe he can even tell us what is the latest things he is working on.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity very greatly indeed. Innovation is something which is very close to my heart, and I've often said that the I in India should not stand for innovation, it should not stand for imitation, it must stand for innovation. And it is the innovative India that we are trying to build. I've been deeply concerned with the innovation movement in India. I chair the National Innovation Foundation, which looks at grassroots innovators, ordinary people who do innovations in the field at home. We honor them, we award them, we try to take their innovations forward, because innovations are not necessarily done in Harvard, Cambridge, MIT or University of Delhi. They can be done in the field too. So that's what we look at. I chair the Reliance Innovation Council, Reliance being our #1 company. It comprises Nobel laureates like John Medlin, Robert Grubbs. It comprises great innovators like George Whitesides from Harvard. The market cap of his company is close to $30 billion, and he's the highest cited scientist in the world. It used to have C.K. Prahlad, unfortunately he is no more. So that is at the top of the pyramid, and grassroots innovators are at the bottom of the pyramid. And in between, in the middle of the pyramid, I chair Marico Innovation Foundation, which looks at social innovations. And I also chair Thermax Innovation Council, which is our big company, energy and environment. So my connectivity with innovation in India spans the entire period of the pyramid. I'm also a member of Prime Minister's National Innovation Council as well as Prime Minister's Science Advisory Council. I look at innovation as being key to both economic development as well as social development, because fundamentally when you start doing things differently, and innovation is all about doing things differently, that you start making a difference. And that difference, whether it is in social terms, economic terms, can take place only when you start doing things differently. And that's the history of humankind. Basically, if you go centuries ago and you look at it in terms of what we do now, we are seeing that things are being done very differently indeed. Every country requires a national innovation ecosystem which is tuned to their culture, their economic setup, etc. You can't replicate the same innovation ecosystem. For example, Israel will be different and India will be different, Finland will be different and Singapore will be different, Switzerland will be different, and let's say South Africa will be different. And we have to basically understand that. When one looks at growth, one always looks at growth in terms of an economic perspective. But at the same time, that growth has to be inclusive. Because if you do not exclude the people who are normally excluded because of the fact that they come from lower economic strata or low social strata, that creates instability. And the challenge for a country like India is that we have people who are richer than the richest, and we have people that are poorer than the poorest. So how do you straddle the pyramid? I think it's a big challenge for innovation in India.
So, Dr. Mashelkar, first of all, as you can see, fellow students, his background, you must be very, very fortunate to be able to get his perspective on these topics. So, going into the innovative ecosystem, I agree with you absolutely that it has to be different for different types of measurements. So, from the perspective of developing countries, such as India, China, and other countries, what kind of parameters should we determine or use to measure their innovativeness? Because we may not be able to use the criteria, like you say, of what is been to Japan or to Finland or to European countries or to Singapore. The sizes are different, the histories are different, cultures are different. So how do you think a good criteria for countries like India will be used? So if I say, give me 5 different indices of measurement, how would you define them?
Well, in order to define those, I'll go back to the fundamental definition of innovation itself. To my mind, the best definition is what Schumpeter had given, which is innovation, he says, is successful exploitation of a new idea. Successful exploitation of a new idea. Start with the idea. The idea can be new to the country or new to the world. Come to the word exploitation. Exploitation means it's actual use, not in a bad way, but it's practical use in the field, in the market, and so on. Not just a demonstration in the laboratory. And the word successful implies it having made a difference. And in order to be successful, you require speed, because you have to be faster than a competitor. You require scale, otherwise you will not make a difference. And you require sustainability, because some business which is not sustainable just collapses, and then the innovation comes to zero. Now, if you look at this, then automatically the parameters are defined. For example, you talk in terms of new ideas. Where do these new ideas come from? They come from research and development, basically. People being literate in science and technology, which means investments in research and development, they do matter. Then there is an issue of successful exploitation. Exploitation means actually moving an idea finally into a product or a service. Now that's a long journey, all right? And that journey requires several factors for it to succeed. For example, let us say you have created a new molecule, a chemical entity. Before it becomes a pill or a drug, there is a long way. And what is that long way? First of all, we have to test whether that chemical is, let us say, safe. And therefore you do regulatory toxicology, for example, in animals. Then you have to test its effect on the human. For example, you might have created something which can cure liver, which can damage your kidney. So therefore you do trials, first with volunteers who are healthy, and then later on with patients who suffer from particular illness. So you have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials. And only after that long journey does it become a medicine and a pill. When that journey is completed, I would say that is the process of innovation. Otherwise it is just invention. So invention to innovation is a long journey. Now in order to do that, what is the ecosystem that you require? First, most important is vitamin M, money, finance. And that finance comes in different forms at different points. It's not just the commercial banks which, let's say, support new ideas. For that you require venture capital companies. They need to act as adventure capital, not just venture but adventure. You require angel funding, for example, to test out your ideas. And as we move around, I mean, you go through that particular chain and you will get different levels of financing. So finance is extremely critical. Then you require the understanding of the fact that in order to convert knowledge into money, that knowledge has to be monetizable. And how does that knowledge become monetizable? First of all, you must have its ownership. Otherwise, you can't monetize it. And how do you create its ownership? Intellectual property, patents. So therefore, you must have a strong, let's say, patenting system which also protects the rights of the people who have those ideas. Secondly, in order that that knowledge is really monetizable in terms of products being created in actual practice, we have to see what is the implication of that product in a marketplace, in terms of the competition it has, in terms of the environmental impact it has, in terms of so many other things it basically does. So that environment also becomes critical. Then there is an issue about the spirit of the enterprise, because anything that is new, in order to do something with it, you have to have an attitude of risk-taking. So you require a society which actually looks at risk-taking in a favorable way. You require a society where failure is not something which is punished, but which is understood in its context. So there are certain socio-cultural issues in which innovations grow. So same idea that is born in India may not find its way in the marketplace, but in Israel maybe it will find its way in the marketplace. Why? After all, the idea was the same. It is because of this environment. So coming back to your question, when we talk about ecosystem, it is not just idea flowering into, let us say, idea is like a seed. For the seed to grow into a tree, all the other ingredients of fertile soil, for example, fertilizer, water, and even an insecticide or a pesticide, because many ideas get killed because of negative attitudes, criticisms, our inability to sort of test them out, etc. Then only will it flower. And innovation finally is all about not just the tree, the fruit, and your ability to enjoy that particular sort of fruit. So that entire journey, I would say, is covered by this ecosystem that I described, whether it is venture capital, a patenting system, the regulator, the risk-taking culture, the research and development investments, ability to create not only just knowledge, but monetizable knowledge, and that ability to monetize it.